Work Ombudsman has issued new advice for employers considering making the COVID vaccine mandatory for workers. It's developed a 4-tier system to determine when such an order would be reasonable, including the nature of the workplace, community transmission, the effectiveness of vaccines and the circumstances. This replaces its previous advice that most employers would not be able to compel staff to get the COVID vaccine. Joining me now live is Willox, the Chief Executive of the Australian Industry Group. Innes, thank you for joining me. What do you make of these new guidelines? Are they clear enough for employers?
Well, Danica, good to see you. It's certainly a big step forward for business towards allowing employers to get clarity and certainty around the circumstances under which they can mandate that their workforce needs to be vaccinated. Up until now, there was no certainty and no clarity for business, but we now have a 4-tiered program, as you mentioned, where it's obvious that in some cases that under a public health order that workers will have to be mandated for certain industries or geographic areas, and then it works through, but it gives employers the right, very importantly, the right to go to the Fair Work Commission to seek to have their employees vaccinated if they believe that they need to on the basis of health and safety, and that it is lawful and reasonable for them to do so. So the situation will vary from business to business and circumstance to circumstance, but employers, importantly, because they are responsible for health and safety, now have much clearer guidelines under which they can act. And there are still going to be a lot of employers who are going to want to mandate vaccinations, others not so much. It depends on their circumstance.
So is it really now just a question of which industries and in which circumstances?
Well, it will vary, and obviously COVID is moving in different directions and impacting different businesses and different communities in different ways all the time. But as things now stand, employers have clearer ground on which they can act. And a lot of employers in industries which are dealing in remote communities, for instance, or in areas where there has been COVID or where their workforce is works very close together, or they're very public facing, dealing with a lot of customers on a daily basis. They're the sort of sectors where employers may look to mandate vaccinations in the interest of overall public health as well as their workplace public health.
You mentioned the key words there. Is it lawful and is it reasonable? Do you think that it's fair that the federal government has really just put the onus here on employers? Should the federal government step in and provide some sort of legal protections as opposed to companies having to navigate this Fair Work system?
Well, Danica, we've been pushing the federal government for greater clarity on this for some time, and this is where we've got to. The government has made it clear, the Prime Minister's made it clear that he didn't want to mandate vaccines. This is a two-sided coin, public health and safety as opposed to private choice. And in the end, we're looking at about 80% of the population saying they are looking to be vaccinated. So you've got to work out how do you deal with the other 20%. And as far as employers are concerned, in some cases, not all, they are going to have to look to a position to mandate. So we wanted clarity. This is as far as we got, and understanding where the federal government comes from. But it does, underneath this, give employers much more certainty than they had previously, and that's a very welcome thing.
We're seeing the Delta strain crisis not only in New South Wales but Victoria, now moving to the ACT. Overall, has there been a willingness of people, of businesses to get the vaccine so that they can go back to work? Is the demand high at the moment?
Well, we're hearing more and more from employers that those who have been vaccinated are happy to say that they have been vaccinated. It's important that employers be able to gather the information around who has been vaccinated, because then they can determine what jobs those people can do, those public-facing jobs, for instance. So employers are reporting a greater willingness of employees to get vaccinated. We then move into the situation of trying to, in the weeks ahead, get employers more involved in the vaccination process with vaccinations at work sites, bringing the vaccine to people. And also, I think there's a greater understanding now that vaccination is crucial to travel. We have state borders now pretty much all shut off from each other. I mean, obviously with exceptions, and there's some more movement on that today. That vaccine is going to be key to getting our borders open and to get freedom of movement back again. And businesses really doing it very tough on freedom of movement. We're finding businesses finding it very difficult to get critical workers to the places that they need to go. And this is impacting on all sorts of things like our energy systems and our health systems and the like. And we need to address this. Vaccination is one way of doing it, but we need to find a way to get the premiers to get our borders open again as quickly as possible, not closed. And vaccines seem to be the way to do it.
Yeah, fingers crossed National Cabinet can come to an agreement. Willox, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks, Danica. Take care.